Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Holocaust Remembrance Around the World, sponsored by the Emil A. and Jenny Fish Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Yeshiva University. My name is Lois Roman, and I'm the producer of the show. In this interactive series, we find individuals all across the globe who are shaping and reshaping Holocaust memory and education. They take the past and bring it into the current day to make it relevant for people all over the world. Please stay muted during our presentation. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat function and I'll be sure to ask them to our guest at the end. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest of the hour. Michal Klima is coming to us from Czechia, otherwise known as the Czech Republic. And he is an amazing human. He has single-handedly pushed forward an agenda of taking action for Jewish causes in the Czech lands. He has renovated a synagogue building. He's the chairman of the Holocaust Victims Fund, and he stamps out Holocaust propaganda in the modern day. So welcome, Michal. We're very pleased to have you.
Hello. Good afternoon from Prague, and thank you for having me.
We're thrilled. I would like to start with the synagogue building that you renovated in Hartmanitsa. And maybe you could explain to our viewers a little bit about this town. Where is it in the Czech lands? What's special about it?
Well, Czech Republic or Czech lands are surrounded by mountains, and there is there are Shumava mountains on the border with Germany, with Bayern, with Bavaria, and that is the place where our synagogue is. It is, let's say, 2 hours drive from Prague, and at the same time, it's 2 hours drive from Munich, the capital of Bayern, so Bavaria. So it's just on the half of the way from Prague to Munich. It's a small town which is a few hundred people, few hundred inhabitants living there, and it was part of what was called Sudetenland or Sudeten, the area which was mostly populated by German-speaking people before the war and during the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In my country, in Czechoslovakia, in pre-war times, from 14 million people who lived here was about 3 million Germans, and most of them lived in this area on the border with Germany and with Austria. So that is generally where the synagogue is. And of course, from the point of view of Jewish population, in Hartmanitsa there was about 10% of Jewish population in let's say in the end of Austro-Hungarian Empire. So in the second half of 19th century and beginning of 20th century.
Wonderful. So you've brought with you a video to show us a little bit about the history of the shul building. And just before we play the video, my understanding is that when you determined that you wanted to raise funds to buy this dilapidated synagogue building after the war, many years after the war, I guess the local people thought you were a bit crazy. They didn't think that you could raise private funds to renovate the building. So how did you go about doing that? Who contributed? Was it just Czech Jews? Was it non-Jews? Was it American Jews?
Okay, well, I have to explain that, as I said, there was a German-speaking population in Hartmanitsa. Jews, of course, were deported during the war, during the Holocaust, during the Shoah. And the German population was deported after the war. it's another story. The 3 million Germans were expelled of Czechoslovakia after the war. So in Hartmanice, all population, all people who are living there now, they are people without roots to the place. So they are not only Jews, relatives to people who lived there before, but they are also not the major population with roots to the city. So the synagogue, when I bought it with my wife, it was a ruin. It was a ruin. We bought it just about 20 years ago, and it had holes in the roof, and there was snow during the winter inside the building, and rain, of course, going through the roof. And the town itself had no any use for that, because, as I said, it was a ruin. So when I bought it, the first thing was what to do with that. And of course, as you said, there was a lot of skepticism among the people, because they were not, no one there remembered how the synagogue looked before the war. And so I had to find sources, financial sources for that. And to answer your questions, we got some support from entrepreneurs of Czech, rich Czech companies. We got the big support from the institution, from the foundation, which is called Czech-German Foundation for the Future, which is a governmental foundation which was established by government of Germany and government of the Czech Republic to help to help Czech-German relations. And of course, Czech-German relations also include relations or the Jewish history, let's say, and relation with Jews. So we got quite a big grant from them. And also we got money from the Czech government. I can maybe, if you are interested, I can speak more later about it, but
I think let's play the video first, so our viewers get to see the building and the town, and then we'll come back.
Just to explain the video, just now in the synagogue we have a museum, and when people come to visit us, the first thing we show them the 10 minutes video, and what you will see is the part of it, section of it.
Wow, I think that really helps us understand the town and its history and see how busy it was on the main street and how that synagogue building is not off in some, marshy area outside of town. It's right there in the center, right on the main street, along with all of the other non-Jewish Czech
Yeah.
homes and businesses.
It's then opposite the big school. There is a very big school building, which before the war, it had hundreds of students. Now it has only few children going there because most people went from Hartmanice to bigger cities, but that's how the history goes. Yeah, so it was a center of the city, and we our idea was to show how the people live there, so our exhibition, our permanent exhibition, is called Coexistence of Czechs, Germans, and Jews in this area, and we are showing that really until the World War II, it was relatively peaceful coexistence. We have a lot of pictures, children playing together, going to school together, and so on. So it's documented in our permanent exhibition, and I invite you all, when you are in Europe, to come.
Yeah, I have been there. I visited your synagogue building in 2019 when I was in Czechia, along with two people that are on the call today, Sheila Pelle and Julius Muller. And Sheila and Julius just published a book about the little towns in the Czech lands,
Yes.
and many of the synagogues and the history of the Torah scrolls from there.
Very nice book, by the way.
I had the privilege of seeing the museum after it was finished being renovated. And I think you brought along some beautiful pictures to show us of what the building looks like today. So this is the outside of the building on the left.
Yeah, you can compare what you just seen before. And, my idea was to do it as much similar as it was before, which was really not easy because we had any documentation. You saw in the beginning of the movie, you see original plans of the synagogue, but we found the plans only after the whole reconstruction was finished. So it was good to see that we were really right, finding the picture of it, but we had so it was a kind of detective work. I found a lot of documents. You also saw in the movie, you saw the documents, the confiscation documents by German army, which confiscated the synagogue, or by the German authorities. And these all documents I found in Vienna, in Austrian State Archive. So it was a lot of sources I found there, but there were any pictures of the synagogue and any plans. I found only one photo. The photo you also saw in the movie. It is from the book which was published in 1970s in Germany by the people who were expelled from Hartmanice, by Germans who were expelled from Hartmanice after the war. So they published a book about their homeland, about their city, about their town. And there was many pictures, of course, of Hartmanice in this book, and one picture was also of the synagogue. So paradox is that I found the only existing picture of the synagogue I found in this book of
Right.
Of Germans from Hartmanice.
And here we see on the left, you have a recreated arc for what it might have looked like inside the shul building. And then tell us about the picture on the right. Who are these people?
Yeah, we have a cultural programs, regular programs there. Exhibition, concerts, lectures, and so on. So, of course, now when we suffer with COVID, it's different. But normally, usually, we have a lot of programs there. People are coming, and there are programs which are from the Jewish history, but also just usual culture programs and entertaining programs. So it is like this. And on the wall, the pictures you see, it's also part of our permanent exhibition. They are pictures of the local villages which were pulled down after the World War II. These are villages where people lived during many centuries, and because it's another story, this area was also the area of the Iron Curtain after the war, the border between the communist world and the free world. So it was. So the communists decided they pulled down all the villages near the border so that people cannot live there, and they changed it to the military area. So we are also showing these pictures of the town, of the villages which were liquidated by communists.
Right. That there's a lot of things you've mentioned that are part of history that our audience may not know so much about. The first is that after World War II was finished, the Czechs made a declaration that more than 1 million Germans needed to leave the Czech lands. And that included both non-Jewish Germans and Jewish Germans that had survived the war and came back, right?
Well, there were, in some cases, there were also Jews, but it was more or less mistakes. But there were not millions. There were 3 million Germans expelled, but not only from Czechoslovakia. The even bigger number were expelled from Poland. So there was a really extremely big transfer of people after the war.
Right, and so the people that moved into this town were Czechs, and they took up residence in this beautiful mountain town. And I've heard you say that you feel that there's a lot of historical amnesia in the Czech lands because the people didn't know the history of this town or that the Jews had ever even lived there. And part of your goal in renovating this synagogue was to remind people and teach people about its history and the peaceful coexistence of Jews and Germans and Czechs in that town before the war, I think is really important.
Yeah, it is even more complex because generally there is no museum in Czech Republic showing the history of living of Czech Germans and Jews together. Because simply during the communist time, it was forbidden to speak about this history, about that the big amount of industry before the war was in Jewish hands and in the German hands, and this was something which communist regime did not like to remind. So there was a long time people were not educated about the real history, and that's what we are trying to show. So there are not only local people coming there, there are people coming there from much bigger area. And also we have many tourists coming there from Germany. And frankly, we have people who are visitors who are somehow related to people who lived in the area. And they are very glad that we are showing the truth about also their living, about Germans living. And of course, we had people coming there from Israel. We had a very, very, very interesting and emotional visit from an old lady who came from New York City, who was born in the not in Hartmanice but in neighboring city, and she was of course very old, about 10 years ago, and it was the first time she came to the area where she was born, and she was Jewish, and all the family was murdered during the Shoah. So it was, it was very emotional visit, and we have many such visits there.
Right. So now that you mentioned family, let's switch gears a little bit. You have a very interesting family history. Do you want to share a few words with us about your own family and the amazing people in it, and talk a little bit about your magazine that you were the editor of and what you've done in your life?
Okay. Well, just Wednesday last week, there was a very sad anniversary, 80 years from the first transport to Theresienstadt concentration camp, which was the ghetto placed in Bohemia in Czech lands, where Jews were concentrated from all Central Europe. And the first transport was transport of people who were building the ghetto for other people. And my grandfather was among these 230 people going in this first transport there. And so it was father of my father. And then the whole other part of the family was deported to the Theresienstadt as well, with my grandmother and with my father. And also parents of my mother. My grandmother was also in Terezin, and my other grandfather who was non-Jewish, so he was sent to the labor camp during the war because he refused to divorce with my grandmother, and that was the reason why my grandmother survived, because according to German rules, the people who were from mixed marriages were sent it not in the beginning, so they had to the concentration camps, so they had bigger chance to survive the Shoah, which was the case of my grandmother. So I had Jewish roots, and so it was my parents and grandparents. Myself, I was born in 1960, so after the war, long after the war, let's say. And when I was 8, there was a year of 1968 when Czechoslovakia was invaded by Soviet Union and occupied. My parents, who were active in such called Prague Spring movement of let's say trying to reform the communist regime. So they were expelled of their work, and they were until 1989, which was the year where we definitely finished the communist rule in our country. They were they were not able to work. My father is a writer. He is one of the most translated writer of Czech Republic. His work was translated to more than 35 languages, and was published also in English in the US and in Great Britain.
His name is Ivan Klima, right?
Yes. And so after the fall of communism in 1989, 1990, I started work as a journalist and as a newspaper manager, and I was responsible for. I helped to start the first independent newspaper after fall of communism in Czechoslovakia, which started just a few days after the fall of communism in the end of 1989, December 18, 1989, and then I was the CEO of the publishing house publishing this newspaper. And next years until recently, I was CEO of several other newspaper publishing houses in Czech Republic and also in Slovakia. So I was mostly engaged in media business. So that's about me.
Thank you for sharing both your background and your own personal resume. And it strikes me about how brave your family has been through the war, through communism, starting a free press media outlet just after the fall of communism strikes me as a very brave thing to do. And there's another piece of bravery that I see with you, and that is when you stand up and speak out against the lack of free speech. So, you know, you think that free speech is a very good thing, but when you see people that are doing things that impinge on others' rights, you're willing to stand up for it. And you brought with you some shocking photos about a gift store that has opened in Prague. And I'm warning our audience that these visuals are quite striking. And so Alana, if you want to share them. So Michal, you saw these images pop up in a store in Prague. On the left is a calendar for 2021. And I'm not a Czech speaker, but I believe it means personalities of the Third Reich. And, you know, in the center, we have this mug with, you know, someone that we all recognize and t-shirts. What was going through your mind when you found this and what did you do about it?
Well, it's, well, first of all, I have to say that in Czech Republic, we don't have, you know, big anti-Semitic cases. The Czechs are recognized by, let's say, by the Israeli embassy, the nation which is in the Europe most friendly to Israel. For last 30 years, we had in European Union, Czech Republic always standed against resolution criticizing Israel or against Israel. So there is no real tradition of anti-Semitism. There are no attacks against Jews, like, for instance, in France or in Germany, unfortunately. And this is very, very story. I am finding the words. I don't want to say interesting, but it's a kind of interesting case, you know. And it was the first person who wrote about that was a German ambassador to the Czech Republic who was going through Prague and saw this marks on the Wenceslav Square in the center of Prague, and wrote on Twitter. He wrote, "I cannot believe that this is possible in the Czech Republic," and there was no much answer about it. But then 3 years ago, we regularly are celebrating the anniversary of liberation of Auschwitz concentration camp in January, and I had a privilege to speak during this celebration. It is in the Senate of the Czech Republic, and I had a speech there because I am also the head of, as you mentioned, the Foundation for Holocaust Victims, and you know, I spoke to the in the parliament, and I showed these pictures and said, well, you know, you are here, MPs and politicians, and we have this is impossible, and this is a real shame, and you as members of parliament, you have to act against it. And it got a big coverage in media, you know, in all newspapers and websites are shown me showing these pictures in the parliament, and I found or a group of MPs really came together in the parliament, and they started and they initiated the change of law, because according to Czech law, it is not possible to promote Nazism. But this guy who was selling this, he said, "I'm not promoting Nazism. I'm just doing business, and I have no reason to promote Nazism. It's just, I just want to make money, and I have nothing against Jews, and I am not any kind of supporter of Hitler or of Nazism, but I'm making business." So what I was telling to the MPs is, it is not possible to accept this, that if you are making business, you are not promoting Nazism, because you are promoting something, even if it is a business. And I said, if you have a football club or sport club, you are selling T-shirts and you are selling calendars and you are selling mugs. You are making money at the same time you are promoting your sport activities. So it is the same case, and so it is not acceptable to accept this explanation. And it was successful. There was the Czech Parliament agreed the change of the law, and they put into the law also the wording that even if it is if the activity promoting Nazism and also communism in this law, if it is made for business, it is also against the law. So that's one good result. And the second result is that the police started investigation against this guy who was making these calendars and T-shirts and mugs, and he was really sentenced. It is not. It was only the first round, so there was appeal. He appealed, so there will be another. It will be continuation of this, but it is success because, of course, he stopped it. The police confiscated this T-shirts, mugs, and calendars, and he stopped this activity. So yes, I may say that this was very successful.
Great, yes. We're very proud of you for taking care of that. And it was so surprising to me to see this in Prague, because there are so many Holocaust education programs in the country where school children in the small towns where there really aren't any Jews anymore do projects all throughout their school years in learning about their missing neighbors. The government of the Czech Republic have designated many towns that had very large Jewish populations before the war as star towns, or 10-star towns, it's something like that, where they promote Jewish history and learning and tourism. So I thought that these photos were particularly shocking for Czechia. So we have one question from our audience. Someone was asking, when we were talking about the synagogue renovation, whether there are other projects like that going on. And so you probably know more about that than I do. I know of one in Pakov. Karen Koblitz, who's on this call, is actually involved in one of those renovations. But how widespread is that?
Yeah, well, maybe I can say in this moment something about the Foundation for Holocaust Victims, because the Foundation for Holocaust Victims is a foundation which supports this kind of these renovations of synagogues and cemeteries, Jewish cemeteries in the Czech Republic. And that's a difference from the time when I started 20 years ago with my wife and with my friends reconstructing synagogue in Hartmanice. At that time, there were no such sources or not such initiatives, and I'm sure we were the first private initiative to save the synagogue. In these 20 years, it really changed, and there, also the country changed very much, because shortly after the fall of communism, the whole country was destroyed. Not only Jewish heritage, but everything. The industry was destroyed, everything. after the 40 years of communist rule. It was really the country was in terrible situation. So of course the historical heritage was not the first priority, but this changed, and now we are supporting and we saved a lot of synagogues and a lot of Jewish heritage with help of this Foundation for Holocaust Victims and also other sources, and the reconstruction projects mostly are funded with money from different sources. So from the Foundation for Holocaust Victims, from the state budget, from the local budgets, budgets of towns. Of course, we don't have enough money to do it as quickly as it should be done, but still, I think we are doing a lot of renovations, and we did a lot of renovations in the last 20 years.
Fantastic. So I would guess that you would tell our viewers to come visit Czechia, see Prague and the Jewish Museum, but make sure that they get out to the smaller towns and visit some of these renovations, your museum, and really get to feel what the countryside is like.
Yeah.
We have
by the way, if you look to the Sheila's book, there are really nice pictures of these small synagogues all over the country, and many of them are these cases of synagogues which were saved during this last years.
Yes, so the book that we're referring to is called Light Beyond the Shadows, and it was published in 2020, and it's available on the Memorial Scrolls Trust website. Also, we have someone asking if you wouldn't mind sharing your Gmail contact for follow-up questions. If you're willing to put that in the chat, that would be terrific.
Okay, sure.
We've now, we're running out of time a bit, so I just want to thank you, Michal. This has been fascinating. I learned so much from you. Thank you for the history and all the photos and videos that you shared with us. I'll remind our viewers that the Fish Center at Yeshiva University has a master's program in Holocaust and Genocide Studies.
If there's truth to the saying that history repeats itself, then Holocaust remembrance and the study of genocide is not only a vital part of history, but also a crucial warning for the future.
Confronting Holocaust deniers and distorters is one of the most important tasks of our generation.
The Fish Center at Yeshiva University was founded with this mission of preserving the history of the Holocaust as well as more recent genocides. Our master's program offers a unique investigation of the Holocaust of European Jewry with an interdisciplinary approach through the lenses of law, social work, history, theology, education, literature, and political science. If this sounds like a path you would like to pursue, apply now or learn more. I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join us and become a member of our growing community of scholars and educators.
If you're interested, you can go to our website and learn more about that. I also want to say thank you to several people, to Dr. Shai Pulnick, who's the director of the Fish Center, for sponsoring this program, for Alana Murley, who has been so helpful in running technology today, and Avi Solomon, also in tech support. We have to thank our community sponsors and partners, the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center in White Plains, New York, the Center for Holocaust Education of the East Valley JCC in Arizona, 3GNY, the Florida Holocaust Museum, the Arthur Schneier Program for International Affairs at Yeshiva University, Shadowlight from Canada, the Manhattan College Holocaust and Genocide and Interfaith Education Center, SOSUA 75 from the Dominican Republic, Holocaust Memorial and Museum of San Antonio, Texas, the Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Center in South Africa, two different programs from the University of Miami, the Holocaust Education Center in Fukuyama, Japan, the Illinois Holocaust Museum, the Sister Rose Thering Fund for Education in Jewish Christian Studies, the Lake District Holocaust Project in the UK, and Jewish Gen, the Global Home for Jewish Genealogy. So thank you again so much to all of our viewers for participating. To you, Michal, it's been fascinating. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye for now. See you next month.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and nice Hanukkah.